I'd like to call the regularly scheduled Board of Selectmen meeting for Monday, March 7th, 2022 to order. This meeting is being conducted in a hybrid fashion consistent with the legislative action allowing for same. Although there is an expiration on that at the end of April. We understand the legislature is probably going to extend it for at least another year. First order of business, Pledge of Allegiance. Charles, would you please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Charles. Okay. Public forum. Public forum at the outset is limited to 3 minutes on any item on the agenda. Is there anyone wishing to address the board in public forum?
Yes, sir.
Certainly. Name and address for the record, please.
Richard Cordero, 111 Little Meadow Road, Guilford, Connecticut.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Good. You?
A week ago, this Sunday, I found out of the plan to move the basketball courts. In that short time, I have garnered thousands of people support against this move. I think most of the outrage here also entails because no one knew about it. Now, if I could share my screen quickly.
Great.
Hold on.
If you would, please.
Can you let me? Yeah.
Yes.
Not letting me share my screen.
She's working on it.
She's working on it.
Okay. Just give me a heads up.
I think she said it's good.
Good to
You
go.
should be able to, yep.
Okay. Why is it not working here? Well, we'll start. We'll start with. Where's my? I'm sorry. What happened to the Park and Rec? Why is it not letting me share my documents? Okay, sorry. Here we go. Okay, does everybody see this? This is the meeting. This is the meeting minutes.
Hold on. Yeah.
One more sec. We can suspend the time from his 3 minutes for the technical problems.
Yeah, it's. I have it. It's up on the screen. It should be
There
shared.
we go. Well,
Okay. Just tell me when to continue.
Your contents.
there we go.
There you go.
Okay. Okay, this is from the Park and Rec meeting on 6/7/2021. Okay, part of the outrage, which is some of the statements that are listed here. Number one, Park and Rec before this meeting had zero notice or knew about this. It's pretty evident. Mr. Rooney said he cannot believe the department received no notification and suggested sending a letter asking that this facility be rethought. Down below, Mr. Jagoslawski recommended obtaining meeting minutes to see how the storage facility decision was reached. Another idea was to put the information out on social media to see what the townspeople thought about this matter. Mr. Dorsett agreed more information should be obtained and this topic should be revisited at the next meeting. Then nothing. Number one, as you well know, Matt, these courts have served this community very well and surrounding communities for that matter. For one, I've played on them for over 20 some years. I've only lived in Guilford for 11 years. It was one of the reasons that I decided to move my family here. Just because of the community. It was nice that I could see that the community cared about connecting their youth and their police department and the town center. It's a great place to play. And it's that way for many reasons. I don't think there was a lot of thought of just saying, hey, let's just move the courts. I understand about the Bittner situation, and it would be great to have more courts. But I would love to have more courts, not less. I mean, I coach a variety of teams. I get an hour to coach my team during the season, and it's barely enough. All the basketball courts inside in the town are used completely during the season. We can't use those courts in the summer. There are various reasons. I also have some suggestions. So let me just jump over to my Google Maps for a second. I can share the screen again. Let's see if this works. Hold on. Up share. Try to share again. Okay. Okay. Does everybody see the map? Can we see the map?
Yes.
Number one, does anyone know who owns this property right here? Next to the school bus and safety zone.
No, I'm not aware of who owns it.
It seems like a perfect location for a town storage garage, considering the police facility and court and fire department are right here. It's flat. It's not wetlands. It definitely would serve everybody's interests very well without making any changes or having to build new courts anywhere else. But that's one suggestion. Another suggestion would be these courts are 50 feet by 94 feet. I know this is important, the training facility, but it is storage containers and a wood platform. I don't understand why we couldn't move this somewhere else. This is over 100 feet by almost 100 feet. You want to put 80 by 80, it would fit right here. Those are two options I've just quickly looked at. Now, I don't know what is going to go in these containers. I'm assuming some of these vehicles that are over here. I don't know if the impound was also something that was going inside of this building. Yeah, these things were not brought to anyone's attention, so we don't have the facts on that. But my point being is, we are now putting sidewalks from our middle school right up to the next street up here, Hubbard, which then connects, I'll zoom out, all these neighborhoods all over here. Why it's this court is used all the time. It's always busy. One of the reasons it's busy all the time is because people come here because they know they can play. They can see the court. They see if people are down there. Oh, look, people are playing. Oh, let me go down. That's how it works. That's why it's. Yeah. Okay. I know my 3 minutes is up.
Yeah.
If
you could summarize, that would be helpful.
Yes. Okay. I just feel it would be we would be doing the town an injustice if we moved these courts. They're used by everybody, from 8-year-olds all the way up to the 80-year-old that shoots hoops there in the morning. Yeah. So I really wish you would reconsider. I really wish we would put our heads together and find a good spot for the storage facility. I understand its need, and that's about it. Thank you.
Rick, thank you very much. Rick, we'll be having a discussion about this a little later on the agenda. And we'll address a couple of the points that you made at that point. So thank you for your comments.
Thank you very much.
Is there anyone else wishing to address the board in public forum on any item on the agenda?
We're gonna say a couple words about the basketball court.
Certainly. Come on up and at the table and give your name and address for the record, please.
Okay. Julie Schletzel, 177 Stepstone Hill Road, Guilford. I don't even know where to begin. But these courts are crucial to the health and well-being of our youth. I have 2 teenagers and they use it constantly. Feel very safe leaving them there, as opposed to Bittner, where they would go up the hill and there would be nobody there and I'd be worrying, like, it was very isolated. But they have matured there and they have met friends. And I think it's a town's waste of money to tear down perfectly good basketball courts and move them elsewhere. I think the makes more sense to find another better location for the storage. And I do agree with everything that Rick said. And I don't know, I wrote a couple letters and I don't remember what I said in them, but I just really feel we've gotten over 1,300 signatures in less than a week. And I think if this was to come up for a vote, that the town would be overwhelmingly supportive of leaving the courts where they are. I don't think Bittner is a good option for, especially up the hill there. And I'm up there and I've seen some problems. I play pickleball and I love the courts. I don't like the mud, but I know they're putting a sidewalk in, so it's great. But some of the skateboarders have been, they go onto the basketball courts and like wreck the courts with it because there was no monitoring there, and the police are aware of that. And so it just leaves it open for shenanigans or kids getting into trouble or doing things they wouldn't be doing at the police courts, or people approaching the police courts. I think it's a safer alternative, especially for the younger kids, to like the middle schoolers, to leave them there. I also felt safe leaving my kids there when they were in at Adams. And I think the fact that the walkways are going there is very telling that it's not a good decision to move the courts. I don't know, just, so I'm very much against the project as it stands. I understand that you need a 80 by 80 storage facility, and maybe there's some other place or behind the animal shelter. Can it go? I don't know what the land layout is, and I know there's some wetlands issues, but maybe the animal shelter can be converted, or can be moved over somewhere, and that wouldn't affect anyone really, and put the storage over there. It might be a little bit more costly, I don't know. And then someone suggested also online that it was interesting, the neighbor that's in the front is a business, I think it's a financial business. I'm not sure, but if there was a curb cut there, it would stop the people who were worried about the fire trucks coming out. So if there was some sort of other curb cut to have access for the kids not to go on that line where the trucks come out, maybe the neighbor would, even for a small fee, willing to put a curb cut in to get access to the courts. I don't know. So I'm just trying to be creative with what should be done. But
Well, thank you very much for your.
thanks for listening.
Oh, our pleasure.
So that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to address our public forum? See anything, Trey? Hands up, or I don't see anything. Okay, hearing none, let's move on. And that's item number 3, approved minutes. 3.1 would be the February 22nd, 2022 regular meeting minutes. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Any comments, questions, suggested changes, et cetera?
Yeah, I do have a quick one if I
Sure,
could, Tracy. Under the, when we voted on the out of town group wanting to use the green for a wedding, I voted in opposition to tabling that. and that's not correctly reflected. And also, if you can indulge me, my reason was not just that they were not Guilford residents, but they were not Guilford residents as is required. That was the point I was trying to make. It's the requirement. Not that I personally have anything against people who don't live here.
Thank you for that
Yeah,
clarification.
yes, thank you.
All right. Anything else?
No.
Yeah, let me try your minds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, recusals, hearing none, motion carries.
With that correction.
With that correction, yes. We have an item to add to the agenda, and we can probably put it in, let's do it, say after committee reports, if you wouldn't mind. And the item is discuss state mandated redistricting of the voting districts, and schedule a public hearing to discuss an ordinance to affect the same. And that public hearing would be on March 21st. So we could put that in as 10A, I think would probably work, right?
I'll make the motion to add that.
Thank you, Sue. Second?
Aye.
Any discussion? Let me try your minds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstaining, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. Item 4, Park and Rec Director, Rick Maynard. I have a suspicion you may be staying around for the balance of this meeting, right?
If you need me, I'll be here. Good morning. So I know basketball is a hot topic, but I'm talking about a different kind of basket.
No, Rick, that's.
We're gonna discuss
fun,
on
but-
this golf course.
You're not, Rick.
It's a-
You're not-
It was the
You're
first
you're
cousin.
usually good, but that one's a little shaky.
So, as you know, we got a $14,000 donation from an anonymous donor for donate for the splash pad, but also for money for the disc golf course. We're working on expanding it to a more pro level course now. So we need to get 18 more baskets. There's an Eagle Scout who is going to take it on as his project, putting the baskets in. But we need to order them. They're from Innova. It's a sole source. They're the only ones that make this kind of basket. There are other companies that make disc golf baskets, but these are the same ones that we already have, and they're very good quality. So the total cost is, the baskets are $7,200, but with the shipping is $78. So I'm just requesting you folks approve me getting a purchase order out to purchase those 18 baskets. We don't need the sleeves. We already got those last time around. We ordered 18 extra sleeves initially, so it's just the baskets. And
So Rick, you'd have 36 holes altogether up there.
correct.
Awesome. Thank you.
So basically what happens is Craig Smolin, our designer, and it's all within the footprint that was approved by planning and zoning. We always had the longer tees in there. For example, fairway 12 now is like 250 feet. The new one's gonna be 900 feet. I mean, it's a monster. The guys who are good, they like that.
Par 6.
4 and 5. I tried it once and it took me 10 throws just to get to where it's gonna go. I'm not a pro. But it gets a lot of use. People love it. And people who are those better golfers, when we tell them about it, they're very excited about the potential of having that longer course.
Great, Rick. Once again, congratulations to you and the commission for having the foresight to bring this to our attention a couple of years ago. We had an ill-fated attempt at the first piece of property on Peddlers, I think it was, but this certainly, I think, is exactly where
Worked out right.
Yeah.
where this should be.
Yeah.
And the ability to expand it is tremendous. So
Yeah.
I also want to, again, thank the anonymous donor for making this possible as well. Does anyone want to put that in the form of a motion? The expenditure of $7,800.
Second.
Any other comments or questions? We try your minds. All in favor?
Aye.
Those abstaining, recusals, hearing none, motion carries.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Rick. Thank you. Item 5, Safe Streets Task Force, Sam Garrett, come on up. And are we sharing screen here or?
Yeah.
But Tom Tavella is.
Tom Bell is running the slides.
While we're getting that prepared, it's amazing that we finally gotten to this point. I think we're 3 years in, pretty close to 3 years.
Pretty close to 3 years for the task force.
Task Force.
What I did want to point out is the last time we appeared in front of this group, well, 2 times before, was when you adopted the Complete Streets Resolution, which was the last time you met in person before the pandemic started.
Oh, welcome back.
Yeah, and I tried to call in for that and it didn't work at all. So- MJ representative.
Tech that we are.
Yeah. So why don't we go to the next slide, Tom, if you could. So just in terms of an agenda here, I'm going to do some brief opening comments, and then you all have seen the report, and the format of our presentation is really just a really quick run through of the structure of the report and, opening up the conversation if need be about what's in there. I will say also, as a scientist who's worked in industry, I really have no idea what the process is from this point forward, and I'm looking to the Board of Selectmen to guide us from here. But we have the report. Next slide. So this has been a tremendous team effort. These are the folks who've worked with us that we hired as consultants, and we refer to this as the Schmidt Design Group, but it's actually a number of different teams that came together, and they've been wonderful to work with. And on the next slide, this is our task force. We are up to 15 members at this point. It's a really diverse group of people in terms of where they live in the area, and also very diverse in terms of their perspectives. But one thing we all agree on is that the streets of Guilford are a shared resource. And so keeping them safe for all users is one of our guiding principles. The other guiding principle, and we have Helen here to always keep us on our toes with that, is not to harm the historic beauty of Guilford in trying to make the streets safer. So it's a balancing act. I also just wanted to point out that from the town, we've had tremendous involvement. And Janice in particular should be singled out for her patience with us as we as a task force come up with these great ideas, and Janice helps us understand the complexities. Yes. So next slide. So as a relatively recent resident of Guilford, we moved here in 2001. I had not been aware of how Guilford changed as much as it did over the previous 60 years. And this graph that I think we got from you, Matt, shows that really starting in 1950 with the completion of I-95, first the population doubled from 5,000 to 10,000 in a 20-year period, and then doubled again from 1970 to 1990 to 20,000. We're now at 22,000. So if you look around the town, it makes perfect sense why we have all these schools that kind of are that age. We also have a lot of housing stock that's kind of in that period. But the one thing we don't have is a lot of new roads. And so what really ended up happening was all of these small roads that really were accommodating 5,000 people now have to deal with 4 times the number of residents. You can imagine the strain it puts on in terms of traffic. And I draw a little arrow there because we ran a poll this spring where we asked a very direct question: are there parts of Guilford you'd like to bike or walk to but feel unsafe doing so? And 70% of the respondents, we got 630 responses, and 70% of the respondents said no, yes, that they felt unsafe. That they felt unsafe. Sorry, I just said that backwards. And as someone who's worked in industry, whenever we put out these kind of polls, if you get a response rate of 70% of people saying this is their view, you got to do something about it, right? Usually in our case, it was, no strategy, right? But in this case, what it just says is there's some real safety concerns, and the task force really feels like this is our call to action. Next slide. So just to make sure people understand our mission here, what I want to highlight, first of all, is, as we said before, we're really concerned about preserving the scenic, historic, and environmental resources we have here. I mean, this is a beautiful town, and we all love the town, but we are concerned about making sure that the town is safe and that there's mobility equity, which is basically meaning that you can get where you need to go whether or not you're a driver. And if you think about the number of people who live in Guilford who aren't drivers, that includes our under 16 crowd, but then there are a lot of other folks who have decided to give up their driver's licenses for various reasons or are unable to drive. We need to do a better job of getting them to the places they need to go. And to me, one of the perfect examples is you see that photo on the top right, which shows a kind of a path that's been created along the side. This is along Route 1. That's basically people saying, I go here. Why? And what we would say as a task force is, well, you need to put a sidewalk there, right? Because people are already telling us where they're going. And there's a lot of telltale signs like that around town. That extension on 77 up to the park and ride lot is another spot where there's a path worn there. So it's great that the town is starting to do things about that, and we want to do more. Next slide. So this is the resolution that was passed on March 16th, 2020. All this really says is that anytime there is a transportation upgrade or, an improvement to a road, you have to take into account all modes of transportation. And so, we want to hold the town to that. The state has already taken up that language as well. But that's a really important resolution that you passed, and we're in complete alignment with the state. And I think many of you may have noticed the state is getting more involved in complete streets, safe streets, et cetera. So I think our timing is quite good for that. So just to let you know how we got here, after we passed the resolution, there are a number of people in the task force who are much wiser and smarter than I am, who pointed out that, okay, we have the resolution. What are we gonna do? And naively, I thought that we might be able to put this all together, but as we talked about it, we realized, no, we actually need to bring in this is where consultants play such an important role. They're experts. They provide an outside opinion, so they're not colored by, the experience of living here. Although we did our best to bring them along in terms of helping them understand, the history of Guilford. And through that process, so we put out an RFP, RFQ. We selected the Schmidt Design Group after interviewing 5 firms, and they really rose to the top. And then they proceeded to take over from there, first of all, doing a very detailed analysis of our town infrastructure. And then we also proceeded to do a tremendous amount of engagement, and we'll go through that on some future slides. And I think the engagement component was something that we were all surprised at, how well the town, or how active the town was in engaging with the consultants. So in the fall, we produced the draft report. We presented that to the community in November, and here we are with the final report. And Tom will go through these deliverables, but I think the 2 key ones that relate to the Board of Selectmen is we're updating the transportation plan, and we're also updating the plan of conservation and development. I think this is through an appendix to both of those, but again, this is where my knowledge comes to a complete halt. And with that, I'd like to turn this over to Tom, and he'll walk through the report itself.
Thanks, Sam. On behalf of my team, I just want to say how much we enjoyed working with your community. We worked in communities across the country, and you guys were very engaged. The committee, as well as the general public, really stepped up on this and helped us come up with these recommendations. So it's been really fun for us to be here in your community and working it. Of course, I'm from Connecticut, and well, all my team is, so except for Eric, he's up in Rhode Island, but very familiar with the town. So it was an honor working on it. So here's a little overview for you. So what we always do when we do these types of plans, we look into the past work that was done. So we looked at the Connecticut Active Transportation Plan, the Guilford Village Walk, and of course the transportation plan, and really started getting our feet under us and understanding what was going on in the community before we even step foot in it. And what really came out with the committee was some pretty straightforward goals, and one was respect the historic and rural character of the town. We wanted safe routes to schools. We wanted connections to different destinations in town. We wanted safe biking facilities, safe walking facilities, and safer driving conditions, which means slowing down drivers, because the speed is what we heard on and on and on throughout this this process, that people are driving way too fast in town. They're going sometimes 70% faster than the posted speed limit. So those were our goals. And what we wanted to make sure everybody knows that this report is a guide to help the town make decisions regarding mobility, roadways, walkways, paths, and improvements in the future. It's not an action plan. It's not saying you have to do this, and it's not laying out actions for future projects. It's up to the town with Janice, the Board of Selectmen, planning, the police department, fire department, to actually accept what we recommend. So all these recommendations need to be go in front of you, the Board of Selectmen. And when when it is appropriate, you need to do more public engagement. So there's no surprises. Unfortunately, like moving your basketball courts, I just heard of. I saw it on news the other day. You really, we want to make sure people are informed before you go and make the next step. But the real consideration is to protect the historic and aesthetic and natural content of the town. So really briefly, what's a complete street? I'm not gonna read this. It's basically, it's a complete street is for drivers, transit riders, old, young. We always say we want to do plans that go from 5 years old to 105 years old for people to be safe on the streets. So it's just really what's happening in allowing people to choose their mode of travel. Some of the elements of a complete street, of course, people are walking, people are using transit, biking, driving, conducting business, living in town, and also working in town as well. So it's a vision for everybody, no matter how old you are. Some of the benefits of complete streets: you get more physical activity, you lower your body weight, lower rates of traffic injury, less air pollution, and improved mobility for non-drivers. And there's also the benefits of economic benefits, increased livability, and higher transit use. So those are all the goals that we're really trying to hit on this. In our research, Joe's on the line. Give a little wave there, Joe. There you go. He's our transportation engineer, and he's been great in grounding our thoughts. So what we found was local roads, we had 501 crashes, 1 fatality. On other state routes within your town, it was 497 with 2 fatalities. Route 1 itself was 466 with 1 fatality. And some of the other data that we didn't know exactly where things happened was 26 crashes. So, 9 pedestrians and 13 bike crashes between 2016 and 2020. So pretty high rate of crashes. And this graphic just kind of shows if you get hit when you're at 20 miles an hour, your chance of living is really high. And as you go down to 40, you don't have much of a chance. And that's why we want to try to calm these streets. One of the biggest things that we try to do in all of our plans, but specifically in Guilford, is community engagement. And we did a number of things throughout the couple of years. And its initial public kickoff meeting, we had 110 attendees in that one, which was, from what I hear, pretty high for the community. Monthly meetings with the Safe Streets Task Force and monthly meetings with the advisory committee. We are working with the public schools to talk about safe routes to schools, and they are really great. Of course, we were talking with the police commissioners, one-on-one with stakeholders through a number of different varieties of ways to go. And even our draft report that we did, we had over 90 attendance. And these are all virtual because we didn't have the luxury of being in person. So that always makes a difference when we do these plans. But I think we really did a great job reaching out to everybody. And thanks for the committee who helped us out getting those people there. We also used one of the town's mechanisms to do monthly questions about mobility and what's your preferred method of transportation, driving, walking, public transit. That trend that's pretty typical of what we saw. And then, as Sam pointed out earlier, people do want to get out and walk and bike to places throughout your community. So we know that we need to do something. We also used a wiki map and community mapping. This allowed residents to go onto the map and put comments down and tell us where all the good things are, where all the bad things are, and what other things they would like to see when it comes to safe streets in Guilford. And we had over 120 responses to it. So that's pretty successful. And we use that data to help us with the recommendations. We started off our real public engagement in person, doing a walking tour on April 27th, and really got people out there to see, what's up with these streets. And it's a small walk, but it gave us a kind of a nice picture of what's happening in the community. And we got some really good feedback from the people that were on the tour with us. We also did a design workshop via the internet as well during that period, where we broke the town up into 7 different districts or neighborhoods, we called them. And we worked with residents of each of those to look at one of the streets and what are the possibilities of making it safer. On the right-hand side of the screen, you can see the graphic, and then we used a preferred cross-section and a constrained. So you have options depending on where you are in town, how to address, in this case, it's a urban collector in the downtown, to either add bike lanes in or sidewalks and really help with the mobility of the downtown. We also did quick builds. These are tools that we like to do so people can actually see and physically use what we're suggesting. And this happens to be at the green. And all we did was some curb extensions in this case, which shortens the walking distance between on sidewalks, but it also helps calm the traffic as well. And it was really successful in getting on the ground feedback from the community when we were doing it. We also did one up at New England Road in Long Hill by the school, and we just squeezed down that intersection a little bit by using cones. And the officers that were there, they put up a speed trap, or not a speed trap, but a speed record of how fast people are going. And they noted that, yeah, by just doing this simple little thing, it made the road a lot safer and speeds went down quite a bit because people were taking that curve pretty much at full speed. And we found a lot of data saying that there's a ton of accidents in this area, and a little intervention like this could help that. And Joe and his team did a very deep dive into your local sidewalks and curb ramps, and gave you a full inventory of what's out there now, what meets code, what doesn't meet code, what's broken, what needs to be fixed. So this is the first time in town, it actually, you have a piece of data that you can work with and use as a tool to fix the problems out there, but also expand them. And it'll give you a great tool to keep using in the future. So Janice in the planning department has something to track this stuff.
I just want to point out that the quality of Fair Street is poor.
Thanks. So then we start getting into the recommendations. And of course, we couldn't do anything without the town of Guilford, the engineering department, planning department, public works, police commissioners, the police force themselves, and the fire. So we worked with all of them through our recommendations. We gave them the draft report and had a nice meeting a few weeks back, and heard their concerns and made our edits so that the report reflected all the town's concerns and when it comes to these commissions and offices. So some of the recommendations is it's simply narrowing the roads by just putting white lines or fog lines on them. This just takes the road and moves it down to 11-foot lane or a 10-foot lane, and then it gives you a little bit of space for a bike or a walker on the side to feel safe, but also as a visual thing for drivers. They see that white line and they know that they shouldn't be going over it. And it kind of slows them down because it just narrows that road visually for them. So it's a relatively inexpensive way of how to calm a street. We also look at examples, this is at Guilford Lakes, of doing speed cushions or flat top speed tables. So as the pedestrians are walking across, they're up at a higher level, but also it just slows that traffic down. It's not high enough, so it jerks the car too much, but it's just a nice little roll that they say, oh, wow, I should be slowing up here. So it's something that need to consider as you move forward with these recommendations. Also, we were thinking about other ways of doing traffic calming. It could be as simple as introducing a green infrastructure or a rain garden by doing a bump out and letting the stormwater from that road going into the rain garden get cleansed before it enters into the stormwater system. And it helps with the pollution of Long Island Sound. So that's a great way to do it. Also, little extensions like we showed with our cones, but you can do a little bit more permanently with minimal cost by just putting up a few bollards, and it gives just better sight line. You can see the little guy on the bike here. He has clear view. If there was a car here, no one would have see them, and potentially if he comes across, someone could have probably hit him. So little things like this can help with your safety of your streets. We took the schools as an important aspect of where to start, and Guilford Lakes is just a great example. Some of the recommendations here are just doing, as you saw before on the earlier slide, the speed table at the crossings by Guilford Lakes School, but also there's potential of doing a small roundabout at Little Meadow and North Madison, and adding sidewalks so the residents and the kids around the school can actually walk or bike to the school itself. Another one, which would be more of a long-term recommendation, is to realign the intersection over on the top part of the green here. And also the curb extensions that we did in our design build, our demonstration projects are things to do. But in order to do all this, you need to do a full traffic study of the green to make sure that whatever you do out there, because there are some people that said, why don't we just make the green one way all the way around? I don't know if the businesses will like that as much, but the idea is do your traffic study first, then make the recommendation. So that's something that's going to be out in the future for the committee to think about. So the recommendations: do a study, traffic study of the town green. We also found that the right-of-ways, there was a lot of fuzziness around them. Is there right-of-ways or they're not right-of-ways? You really need to establish a policy and where are the right-of-ways, how far are they, and what's happening with them. Those right-of-ways will allow you to add in sidewalks and side trails for biking and walking and other things. And the residents have to realize that the public right-of-way is the public's right-of-way. It's not their right-of-way. So something to think about and get that established right up front. We also made recommendations on what different types of tools to do mobile reporting. So if there's a pothole or a tree went down or someone's noticing there's a problem with speeding on their street, they can at least report it. And then we also made recommendations for the new zoning updates, and those have been incorporated into your zoning codes now. So what we're really looking at are short-term implementation that can happen really quick, low cost, easy to implement, like narrowing the lanes in the street, pedestrian crossings, bike lanes, sharrows. Sharrow is a symbol on the street that signifies to the driver that bikes may be using this as well. So you need to share the street. And then adding advisory shoulders and footpaths. Those are the easiest things. And what you see here are some of the destinations, which are mostly the schools, and then just a half-mile radius around them, which are the areas that we'd want to concentrate on at first. And then you got the 3-mile radiuses of these big ones, which is really what a cyclist would be looking for. So by hitting all these spots and concentrating them on them, we think and know that you can really get a good network of bike and pedestrian walking. And then also this all calms the traffic, so that speeding issue will go as well. And then you got so that's where the half-mile radius is the midterm, and then the long term is to look at that 3-mile radius and making all those destinations connected. So task force priorities, safe routes to schools. You guys, you already own the property. If it doesn't have a sidewalk to the school, well, you probably should put some in. And so that's one way to really get this whole idea of safe streets going. Traffic calming priorities will be identified as speed data comes in. We use speed data that Yukon supplied. Also, the police gave us some information, but there are some gaps in this when you do that type of stuff. So you really need to do a good study before you implement anything. Mobility, equity, really focusing, ensure all users access to public transit. I was just talking to someone at the state of Connecticut, and they've got something like $10 million to spend on transit stops throughout the state. So there's money that's going to be pouring down. So if you want a bus shelter or something like that, there's money that's going to be available. And we think these recommendations in this report is going to help you with all the funding that's going to be coming down out there. And of course, outreach is always important. So as task force moves forward, you need to keep on going with your public events and newsletters and keeping everybody aware, so you don't get a situation where they say, well, we didn't know this was happening. So outreach is really important. And of course, the funding is the key. And with the new federal monies coming into each of the states, it's very competitive. However, we feel that our report and the task force report is setting you up perfectly to grab some of that money that's out there. And you have your typical monies that are, your town budget, the local transportational capital improvements program. There's all these other programs in there, but the federal money that's coming down, if you can show them, hey, we thought of this, we got this report we did, it's going to just add to your case of getting that funding that you're going to be competing against everybody else in the nation to get. So those are some of the things that the report outlines. And with that, I think we can open it up for questions.
Tom, thank you very much. Well done. Before we open it to questions, I think it's important to thank, there's a couple of members here today, Kimberly Schmidt and Helen Higgins, along with Sam, and I don't have the luxury of looking at the screen, but I think
I know MJ's online.
MJ's online, I think I saw it, but just want to, and Holly as well, just want to thank you for the extensive work you guys have done on this project over the past nearly 3 years. And it is my intention that this, unlike many other studies, task force reports, will not just sit on a shelf, and that will be incorporated. Sam, I think you probably share with me very positive reaction we had a week ago, and we met with our new town planner, Jamie Stein, who some of you have or have not had an opportunity to meet. But Jamie had a substantial background in sustainability. And one of the first things she said was this report should go to inform and to create a mechanism for tracking what we do with the plan of conservation and development. So I was encouraged to hear that that level of thinking, that this is going to be incorporated into something that we're going to start putting a report card together. You know, what kind of progress are we making against the POCD, and then in particular something like this. So with that, I'll open it up to some questions or comments.
Very
One
helpful.
thing, Matt, I just forgot to tell everybody, you know, everything's on our website, and or the task force website, and there's also a story map there that if you click onto it, it goes through all the recommendations. You can zoom in on your neighborhood and it's really interactive. So there's a lot of information on that website. So, you know, take advantage of it and use it. So and I see Holly Parker's on the call here. She was instrumental in the public outreach and safe routes to schools. And of course, Joe is on, who's my transportation engineer. So thanks to the team for making me look good.
I guess I'd like to comment. I mean, I am just, you know, highly supportive of the situation. I mean, it kind of was an outgrowth of disappointing efforts to build other connect schools and all of that kind of stuff. So this kind of planning is what was called for at that point in time. So I'm highly supportive of it. I think some great things have happened. A little bit of my experience in other communities, like anything else, the devil's in the details. And I know we talked a lot about speed of automobiles, obviously the highest priority, but I've seen it pop up in other discussions in other communities about difference of bikers. I mean, there's some bikers that are almost professional level and they get out on the open road and they move. Okay, and then you have the friendly little downtown commuters and that type of thing. So I didn't hear any mention of that, and I'm sure it's buried in the details somewhere. But the other point about biking is addressing electric bikes, because they're coming. I mean, I see them in places that you never would have expected them. And, you know, both in the downtown setting and even on the open road. Is that been part of the discussion?
So
Because
electric,
you got a regulatory thing.
yeah, well, electric bikes are not discussed really to any extent in the report. That's
Kind of like a police commission issue. almost.
yeah, I still haven't been able to wrap my head around the changes that those are bringing.
Oh, it comes- I mean, it's remarkable what you see.
And, you know, I think, so cycling is one of the challenges that we definitely face with the fact that our roads are going to be very hard to widen because of the layout of the town. And, you know, 146, that's one of the hot button issues is,
77.
yeah, we're not putting anything, there's nothing in the report talking about, you know, widening 146, et cetera. But what we would like to do is make sure that we have the roads at the appropriate width so we can get as much space as possible on the shoulders for cyclists and pedestrians. And a lot of the roads in town don't even have any fog lines or white lines there. And
Well, what's happening, and it's only cropped up a couple of times, but I've seen it crop up in other discussions in other communities, is when you start defining lines. I mean, many communities, and I go back to P and Z when I was on there. I'm sidetracking, changing subjects, but requiring developers to install, whether it be sidewalks or whatever, is very real. And that's been on the books for years, and I think that's got to be enforced. But
yeah,
anyway, on open stretches of road, especially in scenic areas, when you define it just by lines, you get a situation where those bikes are moving and they, you know, they feel that that's my space now. So it's something to put on the,
yeah.
you know, on the radar.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you start making raceways and there'll be races.
Well, one of the best things I think in this community is not talking about the, the more elite cyclists, but the fact that people can ride bicycles on the sidewalk here because it's legal to do that. I hope that never goes away because I haven't seen that be a real issue. And I've seen a lot of kids now biking to school in the morning and all that. And so, what we would ideally, we'd love to have protected bike lanes, but we just don't feel like we have the space to do that. And
what about the issue of defining between sidewalks, trails, pathways?
right,
Usage.
Janice is working on language to that effect. I guess is that in the plan of conservation? Where would that language show up? Where's it zoning?
Be zoning.
Remember we were talking about that?
Yeah, I can't remember the name of it,
Okay,
but there is, right now, the only thing defined is a standard road bed and a standard sidewalk.
Right.
And that's it. And the road bed it's huge, because it's from like the 1960s when it was defined. And the sidewalk is 5 feet, but
Like what
we
they
need more
built
language.
over there by Hammonasset, connecting Hammonasset to Liberty Street.
Mhm.
What's that defined as?
Pathway. That's part of the Shoreline Greenway Trail.
right.
That would be a greenway, lowercase g is a defined DOT term. Greenway is a minimum width for multi.
Yeah, and I think that's what this,
Janice would be adding language like that, right?
that's what this group, we've got to work towards getting platforms, that kind of stuff, so that when opportunities pop up, we can take
Right.
advantage of them, we're prepared, and that's why your committee is just so important. And I
Right.
commend
Well,
all your efforts.
And I think the importance is it provides groups that have interests, like the Greenway Trail, et cetera, a place that they can go speak to residents and start to understand, what are the the third rails that we might run into and all that. And the goal would be to try and come to a solution that works for
Developers
everybody.
and Whether it's streets and all of that stuff. I
Yeah.
mean, it becomes budget issue. And
Yeah.
it just gives us a defined way, this is what we are working towards as a community.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think your efforts have been great. So.
Thank you.
Sam, I just wanted to pick up on a point that two of you were talking about, and it's largely that the gist of this is we're sharing these roads, right? And we need to be accommodating for all the various uses. And whether that's speeding and giving people enough room when they're riding their bike, or the folks who are riding bikes aren't riding 2 or 3 abreast, okay?
Correct. Yep.
Because that's a dangerous thing, particularly on something like 146, which, to Charlie's point, it's a national scenic roadway, national scenic biking roadway. So, people are encouraged to actually use those roads, but we need to understand everyone has a right to those roads, whether it's an automobile or a bike or a car. There's an interesting, I think, story that I've heard that roads were first paved in this country to accommodate cyclists.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
it's an interesting phenomenon because they were before there were automobiles and they were paving roads to make cycling easier and more accessible. So one of the things that I think Bob Yarrow talks about occasionally in your meetings, he at least used with me, but developing this code of conduct. So there are a clear set of expectations that get shared within the community relative to the, how you should behave relative to your driving or your cycling or your walking, because everyone has an ownership piece in doing it appropriately and correctly. The last piece I want to mention before I give it over to my colleagues is a number of our more dangerous roads or places you've found to be of concern are owned by the state. Okay, I think you talked about Route 1, we talked about 146, 77, okay, those, and I think as we identify those, we need to know, we need to be aware that those are significantly longer term opportunities only because of the nature of the bureaucracy of working with the state. So I think you and I have had that conversation.
Yep.
We need to identify the ones that we need to alert the state to that we want to do something with. But I think the point you made earlier is the state is now adopting this philosophy of state streets. So the timing should be good.
Right. Yeah, the single most dangerous intersection in Guilford for everybody is up by the Shoreline Diner where Route 1 and 146. That
Offset intersections are always a
yeah,
pain.
and so that's one we would
Took the
definitely.
pressure off Water Street and Whitfield.
Yeah, but that's one we definitely want to alert the state to because they own both of those roads.
Yeah.
But our accident data for everybody, cars, bikes, and I think pedestrians are afraid to cross there, so it may be less,
Yeah.
but we want to get the ball rolling on it. It might take 10 years, but we got 10 years,
And the recommendation there, in case anyone didn't notice it, was a roundabout.
Yes,
Those of us who live near there noticed it, but in
yeah,
case anyone missed that detail, that was.
yeah.
How was the roundabout on 22 working out?
I love it.
It's fantastic.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
it's good.
people who use it regularly love it. I mean, I used to work in Wallingford and I would never come home that way because you can never make the left turn onto Route 1. And now it's a piece of cake. I think for people who are unfamiliar with roundabouts,
Yeah, it's gotta be a learning experience.
Yeah,
It's just
yeah. But,
interesting. It's good.
but I mean, it solved that problem. The number of times I saw somebody do something incredibly stupid because they've been waiting too long and finally just decided I'm going anyway.
Yeah.
Those days are over now.
I lied. I did have one other comment. And that is the stormwater runoff and bioswales. It's something that I've been attempting to get Janice to identify opportunities for. Have you folks actually identified places where those would be most appropriate?
Let's send that to Tom. Did you hear that?
Not specifically, what locations. I've done bioswales and rain gardens for roadways, for quite some time. I think any residential, community can do them, and it's always fun to get the neighbors excited about them and be the people that take care of them, as well. So I think whenever you do a roadway job, the first thing you should do is say, okay, where's the green infrastructure and can it work? There's a number of different types of tactics that you can use to do that type of stuff. So it can happen on almost any street. So as new projects come up, look into, have Janice look into it, have her consultants take a hard look at how can we get some of the stormwater into a rain garden or biofiltration swale before it moves forward. So that's what we would recommend.
Thank you, Tom. Luke?
Yep.
So thanks for all this, everybody. on the
Yeah,
Committee,
A
tremendous
lot
work.
of work.
And I think what my takeaway is, it's going to take time. You're setting a vision as much as anything here. And to the point that developers have a responsibility as long as they know what they need to do. And the town has a responsibility whenever we can make these changes incrementally. It's not like we're going to wave a wand and these problems go away, but everybody has an awareness. To Matt's point, the responsibility goes all the way around. Bikers, walkers, all have responsibilities in terms of using these spaces as well as the drivers. So that's really, really important. One thing, these green drainage areas are swales, tremendous idea. And not to cast aspersions on our local metropolis, but they have some there and they become litter collectors unless somebody has ownership and responsibility for, and somebody, Tom may have said it, somebody's got to have responsibility and some ownership in terms of make sure that stays clean, because it doesn't take much to have cups and plastic and, well, less plastic bags, thank goodness. But stuff accumulates there pretty quickly. But just by virtue of the way it's designed, it's like literally water is supposed to run in there. Things get caught, they get in there, somebody's got to clean it. I'm only saying it.
Got it.
So thanks.
Typically, we don't do interactions with the public during presentations, but I'm gonna,
Somebody had a
I'm gonna
question.
open it up.
That's fine. We're from North Guilford, and a lot of what we've just heard doesn't really address North Guilford, it seems, because some of them won't work. I mean, you can't have sidewalks in North Guilford, right? But some of them are serious problems for us. Speeding is a real problem, and it has to get dealt with differently than it would downtown. So, we always kind of look at ourselves like the wicked stepsister there. And we have unique problems. So we hope that, those also get addressed along the way.
They have been, actually, when Sam mentioned neighborhood mapping, they mapped the community into 7 different geographic areas. And ironically, neighborhood 1 is North Guilford West, and neighborhood 2 is North Guilford East. So there is specific identification for each representative area, each of those seven, in terms of some of the considerations. Although I did see a potential roundabout up on, what is it, the county road?
Yeah.
Yeah, that little funky triangular intersection there, which could be a challenge in terms of, the geography and having to build it up.
Yeah,
but-
that's-
Go ahead.
and I mean, we are also focusing on the school
Right, that's,
and trying to provide a safe route, across Great Hill at that point.
right, because there's only one way to safely get to the school,
Yes,
and that's our street.
yes.
It's
But,
coming up Heaven.
so what you may have noticed is there's the remains of an old road. Wilbur Road used to go all the way through to Ledge Hill, right? Is that correct? And so there's actually an opportunity for a path there where if we could construct a safe crosswalk, kids could walk across Great Hill and then take the path and get to the school that way. But I agree that North Guilford, in terms of the sheer size of it, it doesn't lend itself to the same
What
kind
I'm
of,
saying is, I think the pandemic has accentuated it around the school
yeah.
because the kids aren't riding the buses.
Yeah.
So you suddenly
Parents are
have this
driving.
huge influx of traffic
Mhm.
that it was not normal,
Mhm.
which has kind of accentuated all the issues up there.
And it's not just up there, it's at every one of our elementary
Right.
schools and even the middle schools. Ball unfortunately has a long driveway to get in, but that has been an issue that the police commission and police department have been working on.
And, yeah, and the feedback we received from the town, there were so many parents who said they would prefer to walk, either their kids to walk to school if they're the appropriate age, or they would prefer to walk with their kids to school, but they just didn't feel like there were these safe routes. And so that's one of the reasons we wanted to focus on that. And there are, Janice, I don't think is on the call, but she's already got a number of projects underway that are going to make a huge difference. The Church Street extension
Yep.
up to the Park and Ride and beyond,
Yep.
and then also the Boston Street extension
Yep.
will open up, walking to Leap for a lot more families.
Absolutely.
So that kind of feedback, when you get it, and then the parents are talking about where the bottlenecks are for them, you realize like, oh, there's a gap here. We have a lot of those.
Other comments or questions?
One more from the audience.
Who we got? Oh, yes.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, don't underestimate the bus stop with the money that can come from the state, because what I see is people trying to go around the buses. If someone sees that there's a shelter up ahead, they've got an idea that the bus is going to pull over, because there's a lot of craziness going on there where I guess,
People are impatient. They just need to wait for
yes,
somebody to get on the bus. and
forget
bus
the
to take off.
need for the poor people that
Shelter.
are standing in the pouring rain,
Right.
but it also is a reminder.
Yeah, that was clearly one of the things we talked about extensively last week, and we will take up the advantage of the folks that we do business with at the state level and representatives there. So thank you for that.
Are those bus stops for school buses or for
No,
commercial buses?
that's the
Connecticut.
Connecticut. That's right. And to that point, we've had some preliminary discussions with talking to the Nine-Town Transit District and then the New Haven Transit District as well in terms of increased access for folks. I think that talks to the equity issue. We do a wonderful job here in town with our senior and disabled population. We have 4 buses that Park and Rec drives seniors to doctor's appointments, shopping, general shop, whatever. But any increased equity in terms of public transportation would be warranted. Okay, was there, Louis said somebody, someone on Zoom looking, or are we? Oh, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to thank you for all your hard work and safe streets. It's really important. I've been here in Guilford since 2008. I have 2 boys. And I remember writing in about the high schoolers jogging on the roads. And the high school, actually, I think I wrote them that they should have to wear safety vests because it's not required. And they don't go single file, even though their answer to me was that they go single file. They don't. They go packs. And I don't want to wait for tragedy. You can't see them. And so I'm so glad that there's somebody working. And did you say something about connecting the schools?
Yes.
Oh, that's a great idea. Because I live a mile from the high school. I won't let my kids cross over Route 77.
Yeah.
They can't walk to school.
No.
Yeah, one of the first lines I learned about this business was connecting centers of culture or centers of gathering, right? And clearly those, the schools tend to be a pretty significant gathering places most of the year. Anyone else? Once again, thank you for all the work, and thank you for the work you're going to continue to do. We are not disbanding the Safe Streets Task Force. If there are those who feel they need to move on, that's fine. But I think the passion that's been exhibited by the members of your committee will suggest that they will probably stay engaged.
Great. And you guys will let us know what the next steps are for this report.
Once we figure it out.
Okay.
Once we figure it out.
Including timelines.
Yeah, and
Gotta put timelines.
we would, and that was what we talked about at our meeting last week, because this really is, this is a planning function. And the planning function, I think specifically is going to involve our town planner, our town engineer, our public works, our police, and our fire. And then obviously this board or a representative from it. But it's not going to sit on a shelf.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 6, discuss and take possible action on the amount to include for the land acquisition bond authorization. Mr. McKelney, Mr. McGee, is your committee's recommendation still the same?
I recommend, well,
Come on up.
as you know, our original discussion was around a 15 million, but we worked that into a $10 million request.
Okay.
So it stands at that, of which 25% would be for open space and, 75% would be for open space and 25 for BC, which is either municipal use and or recreational construction, ball field kind of use. So yes, $10 million is our continuing recommendation.
And just to review, the first one, premier one, that was for 5 million.
In 2005,
And it's lasted over 20 years.
there still is a small amount available on the 2000.
Yeah, you can
I'm
take
sorry.
it down here.
I understand that. Kevin and I both have relatives who are immunocompromised, and so I try to wear a mask whenever I can, and I wish a lot of other people would. But anyway, I understand it makes communication difficult for me and everybody. Yes, that was $5 million 22 years ago. There's still a little bit left on that for open space. And our rationale was that the price of all properties, including open spaces, increased substantially, but it may take another 20 years to utilize this or more, but it provides a very useful tool with which we can negotiate with people because they know that the town has the ability to complete the contract, even though we may go for grants or other sources of funding and not ultimately use all of the town's money for it. So it's just, it's been used, in my opinion, very judiciously, and we would ask that it be continued.
Just a point of clarification, we are not actually bonding all of it immediately. It's
an authorization.
Authorization to bond.
Correct.
Up to that amount for those purposes. And there's actually several checks and balances to it. The way it was originally established was the recommendation had to come from land acquisition to this board. This board had to go to Board of Finance for authorization to actually access the funds, even though theoretically, most times when a bond authorization is passed, it's at the discretion of the Board of Selectmen to utilize those funds at the appropriate time. So this has an additional fail-safe. Plus, any of these purchases are subject to public hearings, town meeting for the approval of the purchase of that property. I know we had some discussions before when it was at 15. That was clearly more than this board had a stomach for. I know there was also some discussion, was 10 too much? I personally thought 10 was a decent compromise from, given the inflationary nature of the past 22 years. That 5 is probably worth, 3 at this point. You're the guy that knows how to do that better than I do, but, so clearly, 10 gives us the opportunity, and I think we've all seen the list of potential target opportunities. And the total is, not that we're gonna get them all, but if there are some that require immediate action and we need authorization, we have the access to it, so anyway.
To Matt's point, I'm supportive of this, of the amount of 10 million and the concept of having the bond in place. To Matt's point, it is not, we are not spending the money. We are giving your committee the responsibility to act in confidence. We've seen the list of priorities and that type of thing. I mean, there was some point of, how much land is the town going to, at some point in time, you would think it would be finite, but you don't really know because of the different opportunities and different needs. And you can see how the town has changed. In 20-year cycle, it makes sense. And I think having that money set aside not only gives your committee more credibility, but it also demonstrates that the town, is planning and puts our money where, our words are. That, we are committed to not only open space, but good planning for municipal purposes going forward. So, I think I've probably asked enough times about priorities and, do we really need every piece of property here, there, and everywhere? And you've responded very well, and I appreciate that, and I hope you take my my queries in the light that they're here.
I'm still not convinced that asking for 10 is as pragmatic as asking for 5 and expecting to come back more often. If we do this every 20 years, it's an education process, and for 20 years, people are going to be voting on this and a bunch of other things at the same time. So I still have a nagging concern. People do regard it as a blank check. I fully understand the checks and balances that we just discussed, but I'm kind of preaching to the choir here. We get the system. So that's my concern about 10 instead of a lower number.
Yeah, I don't think we consider it a blank check. I mean, Matt went through, there's also a preliminary check, which is, as you know, in order to get an appraisal or whatever, we always come to the Board of Selectmen for approval of $1,000 or $2,000 item to purchase. So, it's run by the selectmen initially before we even get to the negotiation stage. So there's a lot of checks. Susan, I wouldn't say that we couldn't do 5 million every 10 years or whatever, but it's a process. There's a cost to do the authorization, of the legal cost and so on, and and so on. And in terms of actual dollars, it's less than was approved. In terms of inflationary prices of land, it's less than was approved 22 years ago, but we could.
Just sharing my thoughts. I mean,
It just doesn't get used very much. That's the.
Right.
That's the.
And again, my main point was that it's public perception and education.
Yeah, and it's interesting you use the term blank check. I think I used those exact words when I was chair of the Board of Finance, and this came before the Board of Finance 22 years ago. And it was that provision was put in at the Board of Finance's insistence because it wasn't that we didn't trust the administration, but there needed to be a check and balance in place. So to eliminate that very fact that the perception wasn't a blank check to do whatever they wanted. Right? So anyway,
The other and I appreciate Susan's point about that, and I don't look at it as much as a blank check because of the the regulatory issues that we've all talked about. I see it as a commitment to, planning plus, value of real estate. I mean, you talk about a multiple acre lot and everything, $1 million is not extraordinary anymore. $500,000 is very common, if not an average. So you're talking maybe, 5 or 10 parcels. So, it's not remarkable anymore. I understand, the blank check perception, and I think we're learning our lesson again about communication and that type of thing. So I think that's our responsibility to make that clear that this is not a blank check, but it is a commitment of the community and moving forward and protecting what can't be changed once it's given out to someone else.
So this will be part of the voters vote in April?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can I just add one thing, because Matt, I know you know this. We asked Mary Jane to talk to our bond advisors about what they thought about this process. And this is a very positive step for bond advisors to take to the market, and it adds to our AAA status. I mean, it's very clear that the people who buy bonds from Guilford understand that this process and that it's beneficial to the town.
And believe it or not, 5 million is probably a borderline bond issuance.
It's cool. Well, yeah.
In the world where you are.
Well,
I mean, the cost of doing it, I mean, you could chew up, 5% of that. About an eye is just legal cost.
Exactly. Others? We good? Anyone want to put a motion on the table? I'll put a motion on it that we approve it at $10 million.
I'll second.
Any further discussion or comments? No. Okay. Let me try your minds. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, recusals, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, and ultimately, the voters will have to approve this. But
Let's assume
and again-
they share the same values.
Yeah.
Start communicating.
Well, as you know, we've done some and we will do.
Gary, I would sort of suggest that, this was $5 million, but the total value of the real estate that's been purchased is probably a huge multiple of that.
Yeah.
So it's a useful piece of information
Yeah.
for people to know. It's not like we're paying dollar for dollar. What you're doing is leveraging that money.
Correct.
So just as you're out there
Correct.
informing folks, that's a useful.
Yeah,
number.
I didn't bring that set of notes with me, but
We get it.
we've
Yeah.
used it to get grants and other issues and shared it with other parties.
Thanks.
Good.
Awesome work.
You're not dismissed yet. Next.
Nice try.
Yeah. Item 7, consider and take possible action to set a town meeting date for Monday, April 4th, 2022, 8:15 a.m. at the Guilford Town Hall and via Zoom to act on the purchase of 1480 Route 80, Assessor's Map 101, Lot 19, for the sum of $160,000 and recommend to the Planning and Zoning Commission for mandatory referral under Connecticut General Statute 8-24. For those in the viewing audience, this is a parcel of property that is adjacent to the property we purchased on the corner of Long Hill and Route 80 for the potential use and relocation of our public works and park and rec maintenance facilities. And this is a parcel that is adjacent to it, which I think was described to us in executive session as perhaps the easiest piece of land to provide access into our property from Route 80. And this is, as I understand, is an abandoned house or nearly abandoned.
It's an empty house.
Empty house.
It's an uninhabitable house, which I suspect would be useful as sort of a clerk of the works facility, maybe. And ultimately it will be torn down, but it provides access in. It's an existing road into the property.
Got it. Kevin, does it make for a good fire training facility as well?
Not
Not until there's a road built in.
Well, we talked to Mike Show, and no, because there are some, because of the age of the building, there's some materials in the construction that they don't want to have to have their people in there burning.
Well, I say for live burn, no, but for potential search and rescue in a residential facility, not have a different layout, with theatrical smoke and stuff like that, it could be a good temporary training facility there for those activities there.
Oh, great. Creative. Okay. And this is full recommendation of the Land Acquisition Commission.
Correct. Correct.
Is there a motion to set the town meeting?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you.
Second.
Second. Any further comments or questions? Let me try your minds. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very good. Okay, appointments and resignations. 8.1, act on the resignation of Deborah Spaulding from the Pension Committee. I'll make that recommendation. Is there a second?
Second.
Let me try your minds. All in favor?
Aye.
Is it with regret and
It's with
thanks?
regret and thanks.
Well done.
Thank you.
Sorry.
I've already had that conversation.
I know.
with her, but, okay. Item 8.2, act on a recommendation to move Bill Freeman from alternate to regular member of the Planning and Zoning Commission for a term to expire February 28th, 2026. Is there a motion?
Make the motion.
Second? Is there a second? I'll make
Second.
a Second. Let me try your minds. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. 8.3, act on a recommendation to appoint Jason Marchi as an alternate to the Planning and Zoning Commission to fill a vacancy for a term to expire on February 28th, 2023. I'll make that recommendation. A motion, and is there a second?
Second.
Just a quick note, Jason had been on Planning and Zoning, but at the onset of COVID, he decided to really hunker down, included participating. So let me try your minds. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, hearing none, motion carries. 8.4, act on a recommendation to reappoint Jeffrey Parker to the Inland Wetlands Commission for a term to expire on February 28th, 2026. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
A second?
Second.
Let me try your minds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstaining, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. 8.5, act on a recommendation to reappoint Phil Johnson to the Planning and Zoning Commission for a term to expire on February 28th, 2026. I'd like to make that recommendation. Is a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Let me try your minds. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. 8.6, act on a recommendation to reappoint Sean Cosgrove to the Planning and Zoning Commission and Land Acquisition Commission for terms to expire February 28th, 2026. I'd also like to make that recommendation. Motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Let me try your minds. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. 8.7, act on a recommendation to reappoint Lawrence Mooney to the Parks and Recreation Commission for a term to expire on February 28th, 2026. I'll also make that motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Let me try your minds. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. Act on a recommendation to reappoint Brittany Merles to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a term to expire on February 28th, 2026. Is there a motion?
I'd like to make that recommendation.
Is there a second?
And motion.
Second.
Second.
Excuse me, I just noticed that her own submission refers to renewing her membership on the Golf Commission, not planning, not zoning board of appeals.
I think that was
That's definitely a mistake.
It's definitely-
Definitely supposed to be
I-
zoning,
Yeah,
okay,
we checked.
Okay.
We checked
Thank you.
our rosters.
Okay. Great.
Because as I think.
Good
it's
catch.
a bunch of stuff that's coming up on the 28th had come up on the 28th of February.
Oh, okay.
So ZBA.
ZBA
is what she's.
ZBA is where she is, yeah. She's currently on there.
Just want to make sure she stays on Golf Commission. I'm sure
Yeah,
she's great on
she's
both.
yeah. She's very valuable. That's right. Let me try your minds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstaining, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. 8.9, act on a recommendation to reappoint Pat Pascal to the Guilford Lakes Golf Course Commission for a term to expire on September 30th, 2024. I'll make that motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Let me try your minds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstaining, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. Item 9, request for use of town property. 9.1 is to act on a request from the country school to place a sign on the green advertising its summer camp registration. And summer sign placement would be March 7th today. through the 21st. Is there a motion?
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Show your minds, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. 9.2, act on a request from the Guilford Lakes PTO to use the green March 20th for a family scavenger hunt. Is there a motion?
So they'll make the motion.
And a second. Interested to see what that's all about. Is this a first? I don't.
Sounds like it.
They make points, take pains to point out no messes are expected. PTO will clear all items after they use them. That don't get picked up presumably.
That's true.
150 people.
That's, yeah, and running
How many?
around the green after that last
The green-
presentation there.
Green, the library, the
That's
community
safe.
center, yeah, it's a Sunday, so
Yeah,
that's
Sunday afternoon.
helpful.
Yeah,
Perfect. All right.
They better have some police presence.
yeah. Was that a concern? I mean, they say they've notified the police.
Please, yeah.
Good enough.
I mean, think about it. They used to have on the Easter egg hunt, there's
There's.
Yeah.
Kids, yeah.
They're just on the green. They're not running from the green.
Yes.
to the library.
good, right, good point.
Sorry.
So,
That's a good point.
Okay, let me try your minds. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. Committee reports. On the, what's your committee?
I just said it the other day to Jamie,
Economic-
Housing for Economic Development Plan Committee.
Right. And the point that I wanted to make was on this Wednesday, there is there's a meeting being run by the consultant from South Central Regional Council of Governments, who is responsible for putting together the regional affordable housing plan, of which Guilford is a participant, as opposed to us having to file our own independently. And this is basically Wednesday night is to go over the current conditions, if you will, and the community input that was gathered through a series of a couple of polls that were conducted. So,
is the Zoom link on our website?
yes, it is.
And then I had a meeting with Jamie Stein this past Monday, and we talked about a follow-up meeting to that would hopefully be in person and perhaps at the library. And because it's an open informational meeting about affordable housing initiatives, the library can support it as a partner and use their list of people that get information from the library, which is very helpful to get this out. We did this in the past. You know, the library has to be sort of protective of that list. You don't want to be sending emails to everybody, but this is a justifiably related use of the library and other town committees. And I spoke to Rob about it yesterday, so I'm not just saying this, out of my own hat.
For any community event?
No, that's it. I mean, when people sign up for it, it's to get information from the library, but this is considered a library event because the library will sponsor it and help publicize it and staff it and keep the custodian, you know what I mean, that kind of thing. But it's more for commercial use or for other not-for-profits. It's just not a list that can be used every time somebody wants to announce something. It has to be legitimately connected to the library's mission as well. But this is, so
And we'll.
I didn't mean to go on so much.
No,
with
that's
that.
okay.
We'll obviously promote it on our various
Yeah.
social media outlets and websites, so. Good. Okay, 10A, if nothing else on committee reports, 10A was to discuss state mandated redistricting of our voting districts, schedule a public hearing for our ordinance to affect same on March 21st. We've been back and forth about what we're going to do with the voting districts. Pete's on the line, and Pete has confirmed with the Secretary of State's office that we have to, in mid-March, prior to the state conventions, we have to approve or implement the state recommended redistricting of what was the fourth district, which falls into, it's not the 98th state representatives thing. It belongs to, it's Vin Cavalaro's district, for lack of a better term, it has been forever, right? So the difference that is happening here is everybody who is south of Route 80 will no longer be part of the fourth district, part of Vincantaro's district, okay? So when last we met with the registrars, we talked about doing some other changes, which was moving folks from the firehouse district and then into Leet and then into
Lakes.
some of the
Oh,
others.
yeah.
Some of the others all went down to Leet. At this point, we're not doing that because I think that is far too confusing. We don't have the positive input from the schools about utilizing another school for voting, particularly Guilford Lakes, as you had suggested, owing to the concern that they run before and after school programs at that facility. Now, I haven't had a chance to talk to Dr. Freeman myself.
Even on school day.
Yeah. That's what I heard, okay? I need
Makes sense.
I need to validate that. Right. But I think.
Well, that's the only place where they have.
They don't run them in all the
They don't
schools.
have the daycare at every location.
No, they have them in other schools.
Wow.
Cox has it.
And North Guilford does too. I mean.
Jones has it,
Yeah.
Cox has it. What do they do there?
Yeah, so I will have further discussion, but
Yeah.
suffice to say, for the purposes of the vote on the referendum in April,
I agree.
I was actually fighting doing anything prior to the referendum change, but and Pete will confirm in his conversations with Ted Bromley at the Secretary of State's office that this needs to be done to accommodate the major political party state conventions, because delegates to same have to be done between what, the 22nd and the 29th of March, Pete? Is that if my recollection is correct on the calendar?
Right, there's a delegate selection late March. However, Matt, I just wanted to correct something there. I've actually been waiting for a return call from Ted Bromley. I was hoping to get it before this meeting, but I'll follow up again later today. What had happened is and I think Gloria and Lisa are on here as well, but in a recent Zoom meeting with Secretary of State's office and registrars, Attorney Bromley had stated that these redistricting must be done in March. I have not confirmed that with him myself yet, and the state election calendar, I don't want to go too far into the weeds here. State election calendar actually says these things should be done by May 11th. In my conversations with Matt, the idea originally was wait until after the referendum so we don't confuse everyone. We put it in place certainly well before any primaries or elections that would be impacted. So now we're in a position where I've recommended that we get this on the calendar so that if in fact it needs to be done in March, it'll be done in March. The registrars are going to have to, contact almost right away the 700 voters or so who are affected by the redistricting to let them know where they should be voting. So we're a little bit in flux here. This is the safest thing to do right now, is to get it up. The ordinance will be completed, I believe, later this week. And we can get it up on the next Board of Selectmen meeting for the public hearing and then a vote, if necessary at that time. That's about the update I can provide at this point.
So Pete, if we move forward with this, with the anticipation that we will pass the ordinance on March 21st, should we start notifying the affected voters immediately, even though you are pending final confirmation from the Secretary of State?
I think, I just talked to Gloria and Lisa. Actually, we were multitasking while we were listening to the Selectmen's meeting. We're also talking on the phone. And I think what we're going to do is basically have it ready to go so that upon that vote, assuming that you pass that ordinance that reestablishes those lines, there'll be a postcard ready to go to those voters affected. And so they should have notice in plenty of time.
And if I'm not mistaken, it's a relatively simple communication. Any of you who live south of Route 80 who formerly voted at Melissa Jones will now be voting at Baldwin Middle School. All of them are going there. So that's an easier messaging.
Yeah.
And an easier location.
Right. Speaking.
I'm in virtually the farthest street south of that district. It just happens to be like this little nub, and I'm at the bottom.
Gotcha.
It'll be nice to put it the Baldwin.
Good. All right. Is there a motion that way we can go further discussion?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Yeah. Any further comments or questions, concerns? Hearing none, let me try your minds. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. Okay, item 11, correspondence, and the topic du jour is a letter from the Guilford High School varsity boys basketball team dated February 23rd regards the basketball courts at the police station. I might add that the board received a significant number of emails, additional correspondence. I've actually had direct conversations with folks who have called into the office, and some who had requested same on emails to me. So as I've said, and I think I've been quoted in a couple of the newspapers, this is a very difficult issue, very difficult decision. We made the decision a little over a year ago, about a year ago, to move this project forward to the Board of Finance. It was, and I'm going to take some responsibility here. And I think we all fall prey to what I call inside baseball, which is we had discussions about it at capital budget presentations. We had discussions about it at the formal presentation of the budgets, the department head budgets with the department heads. We had some deliberations here. There were discussions at the Board of Finance level, including presentations made, which tomorrow night would be a year ago when we made the presentation to the Board of Finance on these particular projects. Yes, we talked about them, and we also talked about the fact that we were possibly going to lose the basketball courts. And we also made a commitment at that time that we would find an alternative, which would be more than likely Bittner, or perhaps rehabbing Adams and building another court at Adams. All right. So the rationale that I think we arrived at was the demonstrated need, the longstanding need for additional storage for equipment and vehicles for our public safety complex, and the fact that there are pieces of equipment that our emergency services personnel need to leave the premise for, go get, and then go to that emergency. So in addition to equipment being exposed to the elements, the general lack of storage for a lot of things at the police department, and the need to consolidate. We made that decision, and I think we knew that we were going to be faced with some of this at some point. Did we have a townwide forum or discussion on it? No. But again, I take the responsibility for underestimating the impact that it was going to have in the community. No doubt about it. To the point that was made earlier by Rick Bordieri, I think it was Cordiero, was that he referenced back to a Park and Rec Commission meeting in June. Well, Rick is here. Rick was part of those conversations when we were going through the budget deliberations. And I know some of his commission members were aware of the potential impact. So I just wanted to clarify a couple of things. We didn't hide it. We've had discussions about it. I think as I said, the police commission endorsed this proposal. The fire commission endorsed this proposal, but that doesn't mean it's going to sit well with the public, and obviously it hasn't a substantial portion of the public. So that's sort of my input on this at this point. And one of the things that has become apparent, obviously, is there's no other place to put this facility on the emergency services property. Now, I think we can challenge that thesis, and challenge the architects, the on-call architects that we're using to lay out the facility. So I want to take the opportunity, I think, at this point to exhaust all of the possibilities for that. I also think, and I've got both Mike Shove and Jeffrey Professor Jeff Provencher and from police, and then Chief Hyatt to talk about the need. I think it's important that we hear it from them. I had asked last week that the respective departments put together a list of the things that are going to be put in there and why they need to be there as opposed to somewhere else. So that all being said, I do think we have an opportunity to revisit this. There are no definitive, we don't have any architectural plans. We don't have, we haven't engaged a contractor. We haven't even gone out, got to bid on it. So we have an opportunity, I think, to satisfy the community's rightful demand that we expose this to the light of day in a way that hasn't been done in the past. So, so if I could, either Mike or Butch, you guys can, who wants to go first? But before you do that, let me just also relay how this came to us. When we had our first capital presentations, the police department had a $250,000 or $280,000 capital recommendation for additional storage facilities on their property. The fire department had a $1.5 million capital project to extend the existing facility out a couple of bays. We all started having some conversations, and I got to give credit to the two departments, the two chiefs and the deputy chiefs, who went back and said, wait a second, maybe we can approach this collaboratively. And instead of you doing something here and we doing something here, and then the cost being close to $2 million, they went back to the drawing board, and the facility that is potentially to go on that public safety complex property would be basically about $1.2 million or $1.1 million. I think those are the preliminary estimates. So the nature of the collaboration between the two organizations to accommodate two separate goals resulted in savings to the taxpayers of $750,000. So I think that's the backdrop. Is there anybody else want to add anything to the backdrop at this point before I bring them on?
No, it's helpful, Matt.
If we talk about this specific thing, I think you've outlined it specifically. The only historical insight I bring to it is that I was on the building committee for the firehouse, and that was looked at that point in time. There was even a discussion about putting the firehouse there. There was a community discussion, and that was going to be the emergency services safety campus or complex. Okay, when we built the firehouse building, the police station that was already there. We did end up adding the animal shelter in the end of that project, and we knew we had the extra space where the basketball courts are now, and we said, okay, that's for future needs and planning going forward. When the basketball courts were built, it's a logical thing. We don't need that land right now. It's fairly easy to do. Maybe the police and fire folks could even use that as a fitness thing, because both buildings have gyms that help the firefighters stay in shape, and that was a logical thing. I mean, I can appreciate at this point in time, it's been 20 years almost since they built that, and the groups have become accustomed to it, and it's grown into a valuable asset in the community. But the bottom line is that property was meant to be an emergency services campus, and that's what it was planned for. Now, I'm fully in support of finding better and enlarged facilities for the basketball, because I completely agree about the youth needing a place that's safe and accessible and that type of thing. I think the Adams expansion and lighting makes almost more sense. It has a good entrance and parking, and it's still downtown, gives the accessibility for the people that want to use it downtown. I think Bittner makes some sense as that grows into a more recreational complex. I mean, we have the emergency complex and recreational facilities. We can courts could be expanded down at Jacobs Beach, Bittner, Adams. I mean, there are places where we can make more and better courts available. We got Long Hill Parks. I mean, those are recreational facilities throughout the town. This is an emergency services campus, and, I can appreciate that, Rick did too good of a job in building it, too good of a facility there, but, and I can appreciate these groups would like it to remain, but, we have to compare these things that we would like to things that we need. And, they have 2,000 or a lot of signatures on their petition, and I appreciate that, and I listened to it, but we have 20,000 people to protect in our community, and we designated it years ago for an emergency services campus centrally located near the highway. We even built that Hubbard Road so that we'd have east-west access north of Route 1. I mean, that was the plan. I mean, I can appreciate that people have grown to become accustomed to it, but change is difficult. But if we have a plan that makes sense, and it still makes sense, I have no problem exploring if there's different areas and everything, but that was the logic historically when we built the building and we planned the complex, water the property. Remember, there was going to be a stop and shop.
It was going to be a stop and shop, you're right.
Thanks for that historical context.
Commitment for the community to have a centralized emergency services safety complex. And again, Rick made it too nice. This is personally, it's a difficult decision. I've played basketball in those courts when I could still move around. I coached rec basketball on that, and I watched my own kids play there. So, personally, this is a difficult decision. We can use this as an opportunity to make more better facilities.
Exactly, and I also am not going to discount the perception that it's safer there to drop kids off than it might be elsewhere in town. Okay. But I do take issue with some comments I heard last week that Bittner Park, you have them up there, there's, perpetrators up there and so forth. So some of those comments were made last week, which I found completely unfounded. We've had a skate park up
There
there.
are more than a few. I mean, I'm trying to grow thicker and thicker skin because some of those comments, I just felt that, I love Guilford volunteerism and activism and everything when issues become important to individuals. But, we were elected to take care of the entire community, and we've got to look at the bigger picture. And some of the attacks of unintelligent decision and secretive, I mean, it just, I'm your neighbor, guys. I didn't,
Yes.
this isn't what we signed up for, but I guess it is. Well,
And to the question around safety up there, Rick, how long has the skate park been up there?
Almost 18 years, 2004.
Right, and similar situations happen, parents drop their kids off up there and let them and participate, right?
Yeah.
And we've had incidents up there or not?
No, nothing major at all. No, there was some graffiti at some time, but knock on wood, it hasn't been any in about 3 or 4
And-
years. We cleaned it all up.
To that note, with the skate park, because I was around during that whole debate, and there were people that said that nobody will use it up there, and it seemed remote. But what are the use? I mean, can you give us some rough statistics of the use of the skate park in the last 14 years,
Well,
18 years?
we don't monitor it anymore.
Yeah.
In the early days we did. Early days we were getting 100 kids on a weekend up there.
Wow.
We had monitors and they paid $3 to use it or whatever. That's why we had the fence.
Yeah.
We had special events with, skateboard professionals, and we've done a lot of different things like that. But it was cyclical. For a while it was really popular. Kind of the kids who were going all grew up and whatever, and went down a little bit. Then when we rebuilt it 3 years ago, maybe the asphalt was all cracked with the post-tension concrete. And once we did that, it's just started attracting people again. During COVID, it was very popular. I remember being up there one day and there were 20 kids on the skate park. So I've been up there a lot for other things, either walking the trails or just there visiting on weekends. And in fact, President's Day was a town holiday. I was up there and there were all the pickleball courts being used. There were 16 people playing pickleball. There were 4 or 5 people on the basketball court and 8 on the skate park. That half hour that I was up there. In skate park, actually, with more little kids, parents with little kids, those little razors, those scooter things, all ages use it. You see people in their 20s, 30s skateboarding, and you see the little ones. As you all know, I was very, very supportive of it staying at the police department. If it could stay there, I think it'd be great. I'm sorry, emergency services. I think it'd be great. But I've been trying to be proactive, thinking if it does have to move, let's look at Vintner and see how can we make it work out there.
And I think one of the things we need to recall is if it stays there at the public safety complex, we're still intending to move forward with improvements at Vintner Park. We had approved funding from the American Rescue Plan monies for that. Same purpose, approved by the Board of Finance in addition, including putting lights up there.
Yeah.
Because if we have the basketball courts up there, and, you know, and we extended hours, that also benefits the pickleball community. Because my understanding is that you can barely get those courts, you know, during daylight hours, you know, so I think we're still committed to expanding the recreational opportunities at Vintner Park, regardless of whether or not the courts stay at the public safety complex. Also, Rick and I have had conversations earlier about Adams. You know, people talk about kids walk from Adams School over to the police courts. Why aren't they just going around the corner?
Right, on the
to
campus,
the other side of
yeah.
the school? Well, it's our understanding that those courts have fallen into some manner of disrepair. And then one of the lights posts was broken, hadn't been fixed. So we're committed to enhancing that. In fact, Rick has already talked to the vendor we used to build a pickleball court.
Got a quote on my phone here.
In terms of how to upgrade those. So that becomes an opportunity.
Yeah.
Somebody else mentioned earlier, Rick and I talked about this. We have a half court one basket with sort of a half a court over at Jacobs Beach. Now,
How great would that be?
that would be phenomenal to have it down there, but I think that's, but that's one area. That's one area where putting lights on it is probably going to be problematic, right? Because of the neighborhood. So, but it does create, and I understand there are basketball courts at Calvin Lee that folks can take advantage of. So, and at Cox as well. So, and there is another consistent theme about accessibility. Kids can walk and ride their bikes there. Well, those are the folks who basically live south of Route 1. Okay. For those who live in your neighborhood, kids aren't riding their bikes or walking down to the police courts there, but their parents may be driving them there. All right. And Vintner Park, halfway, which is really the geographic epicenter of the community, is right smack in the middle. And by the way, where's most of the housing development been in this community over the past 20 years? Your neighborhoods, right? North Guilford. So again,
I wanted to make one point about the driving versus the walking. A lot of the letters stated the kids could just walk there and everything, but then a lot of the letters said, I drop my children off. I drop my children off. So that I'm assuming they mean in a car. And I just, for the sake of it, I did my mileage thing from the police fire driveway up to the Vintner Park driveway, and it's 3 miles. It seems like it's far because, you know, but it is not that. If you're dropping your child somewhere and you're in the car already, I know there's other concerns about it, and, you know, but I just wanted to say it's not, you know, that far away if you're in a car already. So,
but I will not demean the perception, which
Right.
is real,
No.
that
Right.
dropping your kids at a public safety complex where the police department is
right.
Feels better.
arguably feels better because you know that there's people there who can respond. The interesting point though is if there's an issue down there, the dispatcher will have to most likely bring in a patrol officer from somewhere else to deal with it because they're not sitting around waiting for incidents to happen there. So,
Yeah.
so Butch and Mike, thank you for your patience. If you wouldn't mind talking a little bit about the need and what what type of equipment and is going to be going in there.
I'll start, Mike, if you don't mind, and then I'll just go over what our needs were and are. And Mike has done a lot of the bulwark on this, on the other side with putting this together. So he may talk on some of that as well. But for us, originally, as you know, Matt, you had mentioned that we had put in for some storage carport type situation to get some of our equipment out of the weather. Everybody knows that equipment sitting out in the weather over time takes a beating. And, we try to maintain our equipment as best we can so we can get the longest run out of it. And when there are things like, rot occurring and things like that, that certainly shortens the life of some of the equipment that we're not rotating regularly. Like our police cars, we rotate, every 4 or 5 years. We're rotating cars through, but some of the bigger equipment and specialty equipment, we don't. So things like our command post, our pickup truck, we have a multi-use vehicle, which was actually a fire department vehicle that they transferred to us so we could use for response to our accident reconstruction calls and SWAT. So those are the vehicles that we're directly looking to move into that area. Those are all outside right now. When we started looking at this, we started taking some pictures of our equipment, things like that, and how the weather's playing into their condition and how it would be helpful if we could get it inside. Aside from that, we have 2 sally ports here. Our sally ports are secure areas where we drop off our prisoners, which are attached to our lockup. Right now, one of those sally ports we use for storage because we have nowhere else to put equipment like our motorcycle, our bicycles. We have some speed signs in there, small speed signs, and other equipment that has to be inside. It has to be in an area that has access to electricity and it has to have access to climate control. One of the situations we had most recently with that sally port is we had the number 1 sally port garage door went down. We had to wait on some parts. Became a problem because we couldn't use that second sally port, to move in and out of that area. We had to do get a little help from the fire department to fix a couple of things so we could get that back up and running, so that we could get prisoners in and out of there without having to walk them through the building. So to get that second one up, again, redundancy is one of the things I know we always talk about it. The fire department always talks about it. It's critical redundancy, and that sally port would again become available to be used for what we need it for. As you know, we use Graves Avenue. We have an area down there, as I know a number of other departments do, that store things down there. And we have equipment down there both for Mako, for catastrophic situations like extra cages and things like that we need to maintain for things like hurricanes and things like that. We also have equipment that we have down there, which is a lot of our traffic control items such as signs, cones, horses, the sawhorses, things like that. We have equipment that when you may not know, but when our cars are upfitted, we talk about that when we come to budget. We upfit our cars. Well, to upfit our cars, we have to remove equipment like car seats and things like the back seats and things out of those vehicles to upfit them with prisoner containment areas. All that stuff has to be stored somewhere for all our vehicles until those vehicles end up going back into use, either for the town or traded in or sold at auction. When we pull the containment systems out, those seats have to go back in. So we have a number of those things stored in that area as well. So we have a lot of equipment down at Graves Avenue that we store there. And the ability to have something on site here would have that stuff available to us. And in a situation where, when we have, seems like the windstorms here, it doesn't matter if the wind is blowing 20 miles an hour or 80 miles an hour, trees come down, blocking roads. We have a lot of equipment that we have to move out of Graves Avenue, take our pickup truck from here, go down there, load it up, take it out to the sites to get the road closure things in place for the safety for traffic. We can't leave that stuff in our pickup truck because the pickup truck is outside. And again, all those things not conducive to staying outside for long extended periods of time. We would have the ability to load that stuff, have it right here on site, either preloaded into that vehicle or at least preloaded it and then inside a facility where we could just jump into it and head out to wherever we needed it. So those are just a number of the areas, some of the efficiencies, again, being able to move that equipment very quickly. So response times to those to either traffic or weather related situations and road closures. We protect the vehicles and the equipment from weather. I mean, we've got, everybody knows the variable message board sign we have, which is, a town resource, not just a police resource. We've used it for a lot of different things from, the high school graduation to, the masks and test giveaways and things like that. So that sits outside, again, that is not buying any time on that. for its longevity. So, that's something that we want to get inside as well. We have a plan that, currently we have an impound yard, and one of the ideas that we brought up when we started talking about this was we would have the ability to have a temporary indoor evidence area where if we pulled a vehicle that we had to do processing on, we could put it in a controlled environment, have an evidence temporary or cage or screen that we could secure that vehicle, do what we needed to do to process it in a controlled area before we put it into our impound area, which is very, very helpful, particularly during, if you recall, during the homicide, we did a number of those types of processing, and we had to do it in our Sally port, which is, again, if we had the second Sally port open, we could utilize that in that area in some cases, but this area. Sorry about that. So those are a number of the areas. I don't want to, belabor the whole issue, but those are some of the areas that, again, immediately come to mind when we're looking at the facility and what would be how it would be helpful to us.
Carolyn?
I don't want to put you on the spot, but do you have an approximate dollar value of the equipment you're talking about that we need to take care of?
I don't, but I can certainly get that for you.
That would be helpful.
Okay.
Okay, Mike.
All right, good morning.
Morning.
So from the fire department side, we, as discussed, we had a capital project in the budget and capital planning for 5 years for 2 additional bays onto the firehouse, so adding it to the north side of the firehouse. We had that costed out through the architects at approximately $1.5 million. And then, back in 2020, working with the police department, we saw they had a project in for additional storage. Some of the things that have been driving us for that is the offsite storage of primary response vehicles. So we still have 2 vehicles still down at 51 Water Street that are part of our primary response. So in the event that we get an incident, we actually have to take personnel here from Church Street, send them down to 51 Water Street, attach the equipment, and deploy the resources. So in terms of response time to that would eliminate, essentially an additional 10 minutes of transit time and attaching the equipment for primary response. That said, being here for, the building was built in 2003. Some of the other primary concerns are internal storage within the existing bay space. We have our hazmat trailer is now, I saw kitty cornered in between apparatus, and it takes a longer time to deploy. That was another reason that we were looking to add those additional bays to safely deploy and be able to eliminate the time. Essentially, the trailer and the truck would stay hooked up. Right now, we have to move equipment that sits in the bay in order to actually attach the trailer. So again, it's a delay in response time when responding to certain types of incidents. One of the, right now, we also keep our what's called reserve spare engine at 51 Water Street. In the event our primary engine goes down, there is a gap in time that we have to go down to Water Street and relocate the reserve spare back up to fire headquarters, or in multiple response incidents. Sometimes, if we having that second or reserve engine on site, that was another plan for the storage building. I think one of the biggest pieces too is that we've looked at along with the basketball courts. Or the last thing, that was the marching orders. I think Sandy, it was your comment. The last thing in the plan should be to move the basketball courts. So I think over the last 2 years, working with the architects and engineers, we've evaluated the entire property, and even still, we're still evaluating. Mike Ott is the on-call engineer services, and they just surveyed did some topographical surveys of the area. We looked at parking lots, the north end of the complex, the rear of the complex. We were met with certain challenges in each of the areas. Even the parking lot, using one of the existing parking lots to put the building in would eliminate parking space. So potentially now, we have voting here. There's a lot of challenges within the complex to kind of make things fit. So again, we continue to look at the property, evaluate, and try and do the best we can. You know, but as of right now, you know, between the architects and engineers, they look at that as the best place to potentially put the storage building based on the needs and what needs to be stored there for both departments. One of the other big things I say in the name of safety, since being here since 2003 and planning for the next 20 years as part of a capital project of 20 to 30 years with these buildings, is, you know, in 2003, we were, you know, maybe around 2,000 calls per year, or 2,000 coming in and out of here, out of that primary response area. Now we're up to, you know, 3,600, 3,700 calls a year. And that access way where, you know, kids are walking in or people are on bikes, for us, we've been very fortunate here, knock on wood, that we haven't had, I mean, we've had a lot of close calls, but thank God, no incidents. Our goal is to trying to prevent those things. So, you know, planning for the future and knowing that, you know, 20 years from now, we potentially, hopefully we're not doing more calls, but there's a good chance the calls will go up and the increase of safety of kids coming in on bikes and walking into the complex. So that's from the fire department side, that's kind of everything that we've gone through.
Great, thanks, Mike. Any comments or?
Well, I just wanted to add one thing, if I could. I talked to a couple of people that were here the other night, a couple of particularly some of the people that from the press, and, you know, they had pulled up Google Map drawings of just, you know, like we had seen earlier. And some of the questions was, why can't you put it here, put it there? And I actually directed them to the back of the fire department, said, you know, take a ride back there and look on Google Maps. It looks like a nice flat area back there. But, you know, as soon as you get away from that area of the parking lot and the basketball courts, the elevation starts to drop off very quickly. And particularly behind the fire department, it drops off significantly and then right down onto the river. So I just want to make sure that, you know, if people are looking at it on the map, it looks flat, but it certainly is not. And I did direct people back there to take a look.
And it's wetlands. I remember when we
Right.
we were pushing the boundary because we wanted more room behind the building. But it's all wetlands back there.
Got it. All right, any other comments or questions? No. All right, in the interest of responding to the community, I think we don't have any definitive plans on the drawing board right now, but I think it's worth relooking at the plan, relooking the property to exhaust every possibility of keeping it there in some form or fashion. So I think we'll put together basically a task force, if you will, a meeting group. Will include police, fire, probably town planner, myself or another representative, Charlie.
I think you just volunteered, Charles.
You just got volunteered. And as well as some
The
members of
only
the community.
concern I have about myself, and I'd be happy to do it and everything, is, you know, obviously I have a position on that.
Right. Yeah. And then I had at least one offer from a member of the community to participate in this. I've known him for a long time. He's an outstanding individual, done a lot of volunteer work. He's very vested in basketball. That's how I met him early on, many years ago. So I'll pull together a group of folks to relook at this issue.
I'm
And again,
more than happy to bring any historical knowledge or whatever.
I know we're spending a lot of time on this, but I think we need to, and I have one more comment. At least one letter or comment that I saw brought up the Graves, Boston area, Boston Street property that the town owns, the quote unquote old Public Works building. And it's basically just being used for storage. And this group of selectmen, we have talked often about that is a poor use of that space, and understanding that we need storage space, but that particular using that space for storage is unfortunate for many reasons. So, right. Thank you, Charles. Give me the better words. And so wherever we build the storage facility, because we will build it somewhere, that's going to open up that property for a better use, whether it is for not-for-profit or for-profit. And, you know, it's right in the center of town, and it's honestly a positive thing. So
one of the excuses for not moving forward with doing something more productive with that property was the need for storage.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, I mean, you know.
And then another comment too that people made said, why can't we put the storage facility down by Public Works? But There is a longer town plan to move the Public Works facility for reasons that are good reasons, but we don't have time to go into them now. So I don't think we want to start building more buildings in a location that we're going to ultimately leave or sell.
And especially when you had a location that was planned and
Yeah.
be dedicated for this purpose.
In retrospect, I think the most important issue this is brought to light maybe is not basketball, but communication. And I think we've been very careful to try to communicate the issues that are part of our responsibility as the town to the public. We have forums, we have studies. We didn't think that, we didn't get it with this one, and I'm sorry for that, but I think we just resolved going forward. Maybe there are things in our current budget deliberations that would make a change for some group of people. We should just try to be more alert to that.
Right.
Same token, people in the public have a responsibility to stay informed as well. And not to belabor finance, but I found it hurtful to see suggestions that our Board of Selectmen or the town in general doesn't value youth, doesn't understand what's happened during COVID. Quite frankly, the people making those comments are people that have not been paying attention. So it goes both ways. We'll try harder. Everyone else should try harder too.
To that point, I think this board has made significantly, well, I don't want to compare boards that, but we've made consistent investments in park and recreational stuff for our youth. And I think Rick could probably attest to that. We've been very supportive of the initiatives related to recreational opportunities for our youth. So, and people are angry, and sometimes they strike out when they're angry. So I understand.
And to your point, I mean, you've stated clearly that we're not going to move forward until we resolve all of the issues. And one of them being, working out something. I mean, it's obviously some folks will never be happy. And that's the way it is. You gotta have a little reality check. So, great. Anything else?
No, I was joking with Charles before. So I'm gonna repeat myself. It's very helpful to hear historically where we are and why we're there. But if you need some people on this task force, I'd be happy to jump in. I don't want to volunteer anybody who's got tight schedules already. As tempting as that is.
You were pretty quick to do it.
I had a twinge of regret.
It was his
knowledge.
Understanding knowledge, that's right.
It's very helpful.
Okay, we'll move on. Thank you for that conversation. And both Mike and Butch, thank you very much. So 11.2 is a letter from Elizabeth West. And use of mass notification as a tax payment reminder. This time of year, it is not uncommon for the Selectmen's office to get many inquiries around forgiveness on interest payments on the second half of their tax bill. We have not traditionally sent out a notification on the second payment that's due. When you get your tax bill in June, you get two different ones, and it says one's due here, one's due there. And I have to be completely honest, most people who appeal to me about this say, I simply forgot. One woman said I had it on my cork board and I walked by it, 20 times and forgot to pick it up and put it in the mail or take it down to town hall. So, just for those who aren't aware, there's a state statute that prohibits the first selectman or the tax collector from forgiving taxes and or interest. So
that, the point of this letter though, I think is, and I gotta tell you, why not? Why not use the notification system?
Or send another postcard.
That's 50 cents.
Right.
Okay.
There are some prohibitions on the use of that system, which I think.
Yeah, I've heard that before.
Right. So.
I mean, just like you've used it so effectively with COVID.
Right.
I think using technology like that to keep people informed for our latest conversation.
Right.
I think that's a good use of that system.
Yeah, we'll revisit. I've taken some liberties with that master notification system through COVID. There have been stuff that I have talked about that is not specifically COVID related. So we'll go back and take a look at the nature of it. I do know that the statewide one, the emergency, the one that Mike uses, Mike, or the public safety complex uses, has definitive guidelines around the use of that for general purposes. But to that point, I think we will confirm whether or not we can use that for just for that purpose.
Yeah, the mass notification system is not an emergency one. And I
Right.
agree with the emergency one. That's for crisis, okay? But the notification system to me is no different than that sign that we purchased. So,
Yeah, it goes at the head of the
mass notification. I mean, these are important events in your community.
Right.
You know, budget votes or whatever.
Right.
I think that's what it's for.
So we'll confirm that we have the right to use it for those purposes, because there were federal dollars involved in the procurement or the building of these systems and so forth. So, but we'll get to the bottom of that. The other thing is I've asked Deb Milano and Mary Jane to take a look at what it would cost for a postcard mailer to go out. Now, obviously, we're using tax dollars to pay for a notification to remind folks. So we'll
I think
get
if you
those
do a
numbers.
cost benefit analysis right there, and you're talking $3,000 to do a mailing.
Yeah.
That's what, you know, the cost is,
Yeah.
you know, and how many people are late for
Right.
their own issue.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I mean, do the dollars.
Yeah.
Do we really want to add $3,000 or $4,000 to the postage budget, which is already, I forgot the number, but it's pretty remarkable.
It's 45,000 a year, 45, was that 45,000?
It's tens of thousands of dollars we want to add to that.
So,
I look
we'll
at
get
the
those
mass
numbers.
notification. I think
Yeah.
that's it. I mean, that's what, we're high tech.
Well, right now, we have just shy of 10,000 touch points on the mass notification system. That includes, knuckleheads like me who get it on 2 different phones and an email.
Why is that?
Well,
And it's
over the
spam. It
years.
Comes up as spam.
Yeah, over the years, I just added the various devices because I don't always, it's text is the primary one now, right? Or voicemail. So I get all 3. So clearly there are not 10,000 touch points in distinct individuals who are getting it. But a lot of those touch points are, you only need 1 to come in a household. I can't tell you how many of our senior citizens say we wait for that call, my husband and I, or my wife and I, every Friday at 4:30. So that I think we could get a bulk of the community that way. So anyway, well, we'll get to the bottom of that at some point.
It's a useful input and people
Yes.
obviously should feel the opportunity to share their concerns.
And we're gonna
May result in some positive action.
positive change. That's right. Okay, old business.
No, the other correspondence, I want to bring up the letter I think we all received from the Tide Group with the name change. The only reason I want to bring it up is there were a number of failed threats in there about freedom of information and everything, so I
Okay,
want on the record that we got it.
right.
Did you get it, Susan? I can tell you what it is.
I'm not sure I got it.
Yeah.
I didn't, I only got it through a person on the Democratic Town Committee. It went to the schools. So I got it, but only because she forwarded it to me. But the last sentence, when it said, "We will be watching," is that what you're referring to?
Well, and freedom of information.
Lot of-
and all
Yeah.
those kinds
Well, then
of-
maybe
I
it was a
just,
different letter.
I got it, they changed their name. I don't know
Yeah.
if they're tied up with some national group now or whatever, but, I just wanted, I think it should be a record that I got it.
Got it. Okay. Just in case some folks didn't, would you share what you got with everybody? And copy Tracy on it as well. Great. All right, thank you. Old business, new business. Thank you for your patience, public forum. Come on up and name and address for the record, guys.
Or you could bring something up in the.
I'm gonna.
All right.
It's not ready yet.
Oh, that's, oh, yeah.
It's just not ready.
Okay.
Thank you. You're welcome.
The issue I'd like to bring before you.
Just name and
Oh,
address.
I'm sorry, George Mack, Hemlock Avenue. The issue I wanted to bring forward to you, I had met with Matt about a lot of issues, and this was just one that we touch base real quickly with. It's going to look like it's a Board of Ed issue, and it's really not. I'm going to use them as an example of something I'm concerned about. Okay. Again, although this is using the Board of Ed as an example, any area of town government could be affected. On October 12th last year, the Board of Ed approved the donation of $1,668 from the Stick Club. This is a parent group for girls field hockey. The contract stated that a full-time assistant coach would have to be, the teacher's contract rather, states that a full-time assistant coach would be paid $3,336. The donors required that this donation be used to hire a part-time assistant coach. Interestingly, that position does not even exist in the teacher's contract. At a November meeting of the Board of Ed, they approved a donation of $4,627 from another parent group with the requirement that it be used to hire an assistant football coach. Again, it's interesting that that amount is exactly what's in the teacher's contract for such a position. My question to you is whether this is how Guilford wants to fund previous positions. Accepting donations is not the problem, okay? Accepting donations as you did on other issues is quite legal. There's no problem with that. But when the issue is where the donor specifies that that donation is to hire a specific person as compared to hiring them to say, okay, we would like to donate money for football equipment, which would help a lot of kids, et cetera. But these are donations where the donor is saying you must do this for a person. So the questions that I have is, was this money ever received? If it was, how was it received? Was it a check? Was it cash? Into what account is that money deposited? If it goes into the student activity fund in this example, there's state laws regarding student activity funds. They have to be audited every year. Money has to be deposited. And if money is withdrawn from a student activity fund, it has to be done by check. And the check has to be signed by two people. Typically, one is the principal and one is someone else who is appointed, but it's a dual signing. So my question is also, were these jobs ever posted? Did anybody actually get hired? And my bigger issue is, does the town, through you, want to set this as a precedent for how positions get filled? Because I don't think that is a good way to hire people. Okay, especially, again, having nothing to do with accepting donations. I think it's a wonderful thing when people want to donate to their town, but there are some serious legal issues that I think need to get looked into. For example, if these people were hired, was unemployment insurance considered? Were tax deductions considered? Having been a former teacher, is a former teacher hired? Were contributions made to their retirement fund? There's all sorts of issues. And again, this could affect other town departments. Okay, again, I'm just using this one because it kind of stuck out in my mind having been a former teacher. But I could envision other times when somebody would say, I want to donate $5,000 and I want to donate it to the library, but you have to hire this position in this library, et cetera. I don't think that's the way the town should be hiring people, funding things, et cetera. So again, donations are wonderful, but I question this one. And I would really like this group, because you have maybe got the power somewhere to direct it somewhere, to really look into this. And I think a very detailed policy needs to get developed about how do you deal with especially cash donations. There's a big difference between, for example, somebody having an old car and saying, I want to donate this old car to, the high school so the kids can do whatever with it. Cash donations pose a lot of problems, and they pose legal problems. So I really would direct you to take a look at this kind of way of funding things. Okay. So I appreciate it.
Thank you for your comments. George, I'll take the opportunity to answer one of your questions that I'm comfortable with. Is that the way we should be funding positions? My answer to that is no. If there's a demonstrated need for an assistant something or other, or a coach of this
Right, this
or
is-
something, that in the best of circumstances, that should be identified and paid for out of the school budget or the
Exactly.
town budget.
And I mean, having,
But there were some of the things are, if and I think this has had some experience with this over the years, is that these are positions above and beyond what the school is willing to pay for. So, you know.
Correct.
You might have, one head coach on the football team and 2 assistants. But the kids could clearly benefit by having more than 2. But, a cost decision was made by the Board of Education. Now, one could argue, if you know that the football booster club is always going to put $4,000 in a year towards that end, then they're never going to put it in the budget. But I've always felt that it is the responsibility of the town and or the Board of Education to fund the positions that they see are as essential.
Right.
Now, we also utilize grant money where we hire folks that are paid for by grants, which is not a cash donation, but it's a grant. All right. So those have some very definitive guidelines and requirements relative to hiring. But for a number of years, and Mary Jane's on this call, her methodology of reporting those has always, not hers, but the longstanding methodology was we didn't show any. We showed an offset against the expense from the grant money, as opposed to showing what the true cost of running the program is. So, and we've slowly been working our way from that. But to your point, I understand the concern.
and the one in particular I had the most concern with is obviously somebody told these groups exactly what the contract paid for such a position, for them to be the dollar amount. But the one in particular I had the most question with is when a group such as the Stick Club is trying to donate toward a half a position that doesn't exist. The position of assistant field hockey coach exists in the contract. But my question is also that I would like somebody to question, did they pay for half the position and did the board pay for the other half? So those are the kinds of things that suddenly become glaring to me. But there are just so many side issues that I think need to get looked at, especially if this gets set up as a precedent for how various departments of the town might fund things.
Yeah, I'll take this even a step further. There are some sports programs that are funded in part by parents, which I don't know whether that's of concern to you as well. The swim team is one of them.
I think the sailing,
Sailing club
yeah.
was one. The rowing club was one of those for years. So this is.
They raise, again, having been a teacher and having been involved in a lot of extracurricular activities, they raise a lot of issues for schools and towns for liability issues. So if you have a coach of an authorized team, in other words, the Board of Ed is authorized the team, then the board is accepting liability for that activity. But if it's not, there are some questions that can be raised of, well, did the board really accept liability for that? Because it can be astronomical. I mean, so these are a lot of issues that our town needs to start looking at, I think.
But we'll take a look at it from our perspective. But
I appreciate
it's a
that.
Board of Education thing, so if you would.
Yeah, and
share
again,
your
I just-
concerns with them as well.
Yeah, I just think it could go further, but I do appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody in the virtual audience?
Yeah, anyone else? Want to come back up?
If I can.
Certainly. Public forum, both ends. are
I
great.
learned a lot in this short time. I know other people that wanted to be here that work. So does this ever meet outside of the regular work, like in the evenings or?
No,
just-
we don't. This is recorded, so folks can get this, but I think it's probably, as you mentioned, it's probably an opportunity for us to have a community-wide forum on it and go through the findings of, and not only findings, but share this information with the community.
A forum about the basketball. Yeah, I think
Very
that's a great
possibly, very
idea.
possibly a forum, I think.
I think people would be really happy if that happened.
We've tossed around the idea of rotating our meetings and having some in the evening, but one thing I learned when I first joined the board was how much we rely on our paid staff people to come and
Oh,
participate and inform us, and that's a big reason why.
Oh.
And we did,
Nobody showed up.
Nobody showed up?
yeah,
Yeah.
over the years, because I was a department head for 40 years, various selectmen tried this, and honestly, there was no participation from the public, or, I mean, no more than what we got in the morning, yeah.
I would also say the Zoom opportunity
Because people
addresses
could have
some of
zoomed in
that.
this morning,
But not doing it, if people are working.
yeah,
yeah,
We do, but we're not
Right.
supposed to.
yeah.
yeah.
Does that happen?
The suggestion about Adams, my only question is that it wouldn't be able to be used during school hours.
Yeah.
So that would be problematic.
Well, my assumption is most youth are not playing basketball during school hours.
There's people that from work I heard go and do, there are adults that use it as well.
Well, I think that takes all the consideration for predators and safety out of the equation up at Bittner. I don't mean to be argumentative, but
Yeah,
I think regardless of what happens here, we're gonna expand the opportunity for
Okay.
kids to be able to participate in that and playing
Okay.
outdoors, and we will.
We shouldn't have a broken light. I mean, we should get it fixed, no
Yeah.
matter what.
the high school might be a good location too. I just want to, I don't know if it's possible,
No,
but
no outdoor courts up there, right?
there's no courts up there, and there's a parking lot in the far corner. And there's a big area, flat, there's a turf. And then there's an area there that I don't know what that's used for.
There's gonna
I
be a
see
lot of,
kids just,
oh, excuse me, I'm sorry. I was gonna say there's gonna be a lot of changes as the administration moves into the
Yes.
auxiliary building. I hate to call it the science wing, but I can't think of it any other way.
oh,
So as that consolidates, that will change the space usage up there, and who knows, I'm
But
sure.
it's worth.
These are all
Yeah,
good
it's all
questions.
worth looking at.
the task force, is that going to be just someone that you mentioned you knew someone? Are other people have opportunities to be on the task force?
I've only just started to formulate the
Oh, okay.
ideas, but
Okay,
clearly I think we need representatives from the community.
okay, great.
And we need,
That's good to hear.
like we try to do with each task force, as you heard today with the Safe Streets Task Force, we have people who are opposed to certain things, and we have people who are supportive of certain things relative to safety. So we'll have fair
And
representation.
I apologize if I was any of those letters that might have said something about
Don't worry about it.
COVID. I was just, yeah, it was
Yes.
more kind of really instinctual, and without having any information about anything, so I'm sorry about that.
Don't worry.
We
about it.
appreciate your efforts and,
Yeah.
you know.
Taking the time to come out here means a lot.
And things that are important to you, it's good to know.
Your tone doesn't sound like some of those letters.
Oh, yeah. So I have more time now. I have two teenagers. One's gonna be 16 and the other's 17. And
Goodness.
now I have, I'm looking at
So
that
what
my
board or
time is
commission
going to
would
be.
you like?
I don't know. Yeah, Thank you.
Well, thank you for your time. Yeah, come on up.
Ed Panatera, North Guilford.
East or west?
What are we?
North.
North.
Just-
Just want to say Bittner Park is beautiful. And it's not that far away from the other basketball court, if anybody drives up the street. If anything, we sometimes drive in just for a little peace and quiet, and it's a nice respite to just stop and think. And I'm sure if somebody's working in an office and needs to get away for a minute, it kind of is a nice place to stop. I wish it was utilized more. And believe me, I don't think nothing is fearful in that park. There are woods all over the place. If any predators or scary people want to come out, they can come out almost anywhere. But I just want to say, to speak up for the park, and if you guys can utilize it more, please go ahead.
Okay.
Because I think it's just driven by and no one really appreciates we're lucky to have a spot like that. So.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing those, Senator.
And we have Mr. Maynard in the back here. Glad to hear
Music
these.
to his
comments.
ears. Music to his ears.
Thank you.
Anybody on the viewing audience? wish to comment in the, on the Zoom call?
Okay,
All right, hearing none. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion.
Second?
Second, you try your minds, all in favor?
I,
Aye.
Rick, how's the splash court,
Thank you all.
splash
All
park
right,
going?
guys.
Thank
Well
you.
done.
All right.
That's all right. Do we need to sign anything?